Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Brittany Bacinski. Brittany is a best-selling author of Reaching for Driftwood and On His Way Back to Me. She's an entrepreneur and host of the Defiant Human podcast. Her journey from heartbreak to healing has inspired thousands, and her raw honesty around love, loss, and self-discovery is truly unforgettable. Today, we'll dive into the powerful messages behind her books and the lessons she's learned along the way. Brittany Bacinski, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to be here too. I started diving into Reaching for Driftwood, and your talent is just readily apparent as you're going through the book for the first time. I take you with me on my walks, and I've been diving in. And so, like, with each mile as it goes on, I'm getting a bit more of your story and why you do the things you do and how you're showing up for yourself. And it's a little bit like how Stella got her groove back, if you think about it, having a
hmm
romance with a younger man and just like having all these new and wild experiences that maybe you missed out on a little bit earlier in life. And so I want to dive into all that and figure out, who were you before you were an author?
Yeah, yeah. That's a really great question. And if this is a similar question I get, is like, how did you find writing or when did you know you wanted to be a writer? And honestly, I don't really remember much of my childhood. And I picked up writing when I was 7. So, like, that is a trauma response to not really remember much of your childhood as right. You're very well versed in that. So, I can't really tell you who I was before I was a writer because really I feel like this is so, like, poetic, but I feel like once I became a writer, that's who I was supposed to be. Like, anything before that didn't really matter. It's so weird, and I actually had a very spiritual conversation about this, when I was in Ojai, California, like, filming last week about this sense of being versus doing and how I just feel so connected to writing that if I couldn't do it, like, I wouldn't feel like I exist in a very weird way. And so there's this like Buddhist practice that someone recommended to like detach from the being and just the do. I don't know, but anyways,
Yeah.
that really is a very deep question for me because that's who I am. And so I started at 7 years old. And it was like this lightning bolt moment for me of this is who I am. This is what I do. It was like almost like a possession and like something took over me and this is me now. I don't remember my life before.
And so when you were a kid, what did those musings really look like? I'm sure you probably still have a lot of them packed away somewhere.
Musings as in like my
Just
earlier works?
yeah, your earlier works, your writings, did it look more like journaling? Was it a way for you to navigate your thoughts, feelings, and emotions at the time, and you just happened to find that process for yourself?
Yeah, I think I had a very sheltered childhood. We grew up very low income. We didn't have TV really. So all my friends had like cable and could watch MTV Music Awards and I didn't have that. Like we couldn't afford to really watch cable TV. We didn't have the modern luxuries of having money. And I think that really shaped a lot for me because I had so much going on in my mind. Obviously, there was a lot of trauma, but I just felt like sitting around didn't work well with me. I've always been super athletic, and so, like, when I rode on my bicycle long enough and I'd played outside enough, there just was more that I had in my brain, and I'd always seen life differently, and I felt very different. I felt when you're really creative, at least in my experience, you just don't you feel almost out of touch with reality in a way, and creating was my way to feel like I belong somewhere, and it was also an outlet for me because I didn't have the luxuries of, like, TV or anything, so I had all of these really wonderful I was very imaginative, and I think a lot of the kids these days might benefit from some of the stuff that I went through that I call trauma, but yeah, I guess my earlier musings would be every day when I got home from school without fail. I would take out my diary and I would write about my day or my crush or like things that I was feeling in my body and that was uncomfortable or whatever, or exciting, or what pissed me off, or I'd write poetry a lot. I was so obsessed with it, I would stay in from recess and I would write short stories about dinosaurs and aliens and like everything. I just
Yeah.
couldn't stop doing it. It was just like that's all I ever wanted to do once I could figure it out and I had that aha moment. I was like, that was it. And that's who I am. That's what I do. And yeah, so you can psychoanalyze that if you want.
Now, off topic, speaking of aliens, have you seen all this stuff on UAPs?
Oh, what's that?
Uh,
Unidentified what?
Aerial phenomenon over,
Um,
New Jersey. Have you seen any of this?
I haven't, but I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm into conspiracies. Like, I'm just super open minded. I think there's just too much to know. And I don't think that anyone actually really knows anything because there's just too much information on anything. But I'm curious about everything. I'd look into that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on aliens? Do they exist?
um, like I said, I'm so open minded that I can't tell you either way. I could see the case for either way. And I'm so neutral in the middle where I'm like, sure, if they do, great. If they don't, for me, I went to space camp, so I'm more curious
Did you
about
really?
what I did, yeah.
That's awesome.
I've always been a nerd. I went to space camp and I am more fascinated by like outer space and the galaxy and planets and what moon dust would feel like or how that came to be. Really like the phenomenon of like creation. That if aliens are here, they haven't hurt us yet.
Yeah,
So I
that
don't
we know of, yeah.
that we know of. And if they do, I'm so just whatever.
What
Cool.
was what was your path to space camp? When I was a kid, there was a movie, and I just remember thinking about how amazing that would be because it was, like, all about space camp and what it
Yeah.
looked like and the things that people were doing. What
Mm.
did that look like for you?
I will It was this competition, and one of my best friends told me I didn't even know about it. I'm, like, somewhat oblivious to a lot that's going on. I live in my own world, I live in a lot of different worlds, so sometimes I'm pretty detached from reality, and I just, like, don't really know what's going on sometimes. She's like, "Hey, we've got like, science fair, and if you win, you get to go to space camp. It's in Huntsville, Alabama, and it's this really cool place, and you should totally make a project and see if, you win." And I think they picked, like, a handful of winners. Luckily, it was, like, me and all my really good friends, we all won. We made I don't even know, some replica of something from space, and we ended up winning, like, a free, trip to space camp. It was really cool. There were these simulations to do moonwalking, and we got to try, like, astronaut food and just learn about outer space, and I had a little crush there, so that was exciting. His name was Spencer. I don't know if he'll ever see me again, but oh, man, it was just yeah, it was cool. It was, like, one of my first crushes, and yeah, it was a pivotal moment for me.
I like that you seem to crush a lot.
I do seem to crush a lot.
You do. What do you and by the way, nobody's psychoanalyzing you. I'm not even qualified to do that. My master's
Mhm.
degree is in threat and response management, which is like
Okay.
all things FEMA related in
Yeah.
homeland security. So has
Mhm.
nothing to do with any of this. So I'm not judging you. You're
Okay.
actually really normal. Like I said, I've gone through reaching for driftwood and the stories that you tell are I've experienced that. And I know other people that have experienced that.
Yeah.
But your stories are just so relatable. And I think that's that magnetic draw that brings people in.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's not, like, what I'm going for. I think I just have that about me where I'm like, "We're all just humans." So what was the question? How do how
You seem to crush a lot.
I do seem to crush a lot.
Yeah.
I maybe I have a tendency to wanna psychoanalyze everything, so I'm psychoanalyze myself. Yeah, I do. I have a very flirty personality. I did win, like, biggest flirt in high school, and they did those, like, mock awards.
Yeah.
I just have always been and it's funny, I like, say when I'm out with my friends, I'm like, "I'll flirt with that old lady over there. I'll flirt with anybody." I think it's just they say, like, charisma is a combination between, like, warmth and confidence, and I think I like who I am, and so when I'm around people, I want them to who they are, and I think that's, like, a characteristic of flirting because you want someone to feel appreciated and valued and attractive or beautiful, and I'm not really threatened by other beautiful women, or if I see a man that's, something about him, I'll say it because what are you gonna do? Reject me? Big deal.
Right.
I don't know, like, I'd rather just lie to me. Life is short, life is long, but say how you feel. I don't
No,
know.
I totally
So
agree
I
with
do
that.
yeah, I do crush a lot. I have a lot of crushes, especially single. Single me is something else.
It sounds like it. How did you get to this place
Yeah.
where you really who you are? I think so many people that are out there listening, especially those who follow my content, they're
Yeah.
so invested in attachment styles. And of course, everybody reads the book Attached by Amir Levine, which I always tell
Yeah.
people if you read it, they're very not nice to the avoidant. So just
Oh,
keep that in mind. The author did put out an interview where he said that if he were to write the book again, he'd be more empathetic to the avoidant. So I know there's a lot of avoidant hate out there. So
yeah, there is.
just keep that in mind that avoidants are people too. They're a little more subconscious in their heads about the stuff that's going on with them.
For sure.
They might not be thinking about everything that's going on, including their own feelings.
Yeah. I'm a fearful avoidant, so I identify a lot with avoidant in general. But yes, I would agree with that content. The question before that reminded me I do have ADHD. Oh,
So
how did I learn to like myself?
yes.
I don't think I am a growth minded person. So I don't think I will ever have that air of being fully satisfied with anything, right? Like I could be better. I could be a better friend, be a better partner, be a better lover, be a better writer. I always want to improve. So there isn't this air. I think I'm perfect or I've made it. Or, like I think there's just this, what it is an understanding that I'm not perfect and just understanding that I'm okay with that. I'm okay making mistakes. Yesterday I was out at coffee with my friend and I'm a storyteller. So I'm telling a story about this guy that I met when I was in California and blah 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 blah. And then this woman doesn't know me, she like chimes in. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just couldn't help but get into the conversation. I'm like, that's fine, a little bit chair. So I'm telling it to her too. This complete stranger. And then I said something and she's like, "This changed my life." And I just said, "I'm not a liar. I'm a lot of things. I'm not a liar." And the reason why is I don't care enough about the other person's feelings to lie. I don't care not about the person's feelings about the situation. There's no reason for me to lie because I don't care. Like, if I'm gonna hurt your feelings, that's something I did. I have to live with that mistake. I have to live with that feeling. But lying about it, I just don't care enough to lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some people care too much. She was like, "I think I've lied a lot in my life because I care too much." You just like blew my whole world open. The secret is just don't care. And it could be a toxic trait that the level of I don't give a shit is so high
I think
that
what
that's it.
it's definitely gonna set people off because 'cause they're gonna look at you and be like, "Who are you to be who you are and accomplish all
Right.
the things you've accomplished and do all the things that you've done? Like, how have you been able to manifest all these things for yourself?" That's ridiculous because they see themselves, like, in your shoes. They might be in the same
Right.
place or they've experienced some of the same things, and they haven't been able to manifest all those things in their own life. And I
Right.
think it's true that to a certain degree, we tell ourselves a lot of lies. And then in the process of telling ourselves lies and gaslighting ourselves about what we can do and what we're capable of doing and what we should be doing and what the person you want to become, you're lying to the other person, and then they experience that part of you like that, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're not being totally honest about who you are and what you want, and you're just running around people pleasing all the time, and nobody ever really gets to know the real you. So you're just
Mhm.
showing up authentically, which
Right.
is to get to the place of authenticity takes a lot of work. So it shows that you've done a lot of work on yourself.
Yeah. And I think too, I someone else asked me this on a podcast back in July, like, how did you get to that place of just like authenticity and not caring? And I think I don't want to give myself too much credit. Yeah, I've been in therapy for like over 10 years and I've done the work and I follow the holistic psychologist posts and I'm a student to psychology and whatever, but I also think too, like just the way that I was raised in like that environment of I had to be on my own at 17. So I had to figure it out. And where I came from wasn't much. So a lot of my family, like they didn't graduate college. They didn't really go on to achieve much. And so it was like if I did anything, like I was a real winner. And it didn't really matter what I did. I was already doing so much more than what was expected of me. Basically, my expectations were don't get pregnant in high school and please graduate high school. It wasn't like, go out in the world, go to an Ivy League school, or like, it wasn't anything. It was like, hey, whatever you do outside of not getting knocked up like everyone else in your family did, my dad's sisters and his mom, like, in their teens, don't become a teen mom, don't do drugs, try to keep God first. There was, like, a good moral compass. I grew up, like, super religious, but mostly, if you could just have a simple, let's stay out of everybody's way in life, like, you're doing okay. I was very rebellious too, and I cared about my own happiness and freedom so much more than what anyone else expected out of me. I was like, I listened to emo music and like, dyed my hair black and wrote poetry in my room. And my dad thought I was like possessed by the devil, but I didn't care because I was happy or sad, but authentically sad in the moment. And I was like, this feels so much better than pretending to be anything else other than who I am. And I don't know, maybe it was just I just have learned that what feels good and I trust what feels good. So if being me feels good, I'll change my hair all the time. I change everything all the time because it feels good,
Yeah. And
right?
you're allowing yourself to explore. And I
Right.
think that's absolutely huge. You're saying that I'm
Sure.
not gonna put limits on myself because I wanna have this experience of the full spectrum of life, and I want to invite in as much as I can. And
Mhm.
why wouldn't you wanna do that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think everybody has their own traumas, religious traumas. I think a lot of Catholics. I've had a lot of
Yeah.
friends who are Catholics. Like they have this like in their trauma or whatever is this deep rooted shame of I can't have desire. And so there's a lot. It all stems back, but yeah, for the most part, I just don't. Sometimes I wish I did care more. Honestly, sometimes I wish I did because I'm like, wow, I should really be caring maybe a shred more than I do because I just don't.
So do you find that you don't have a filter? Is
It's
that what it
also
is?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's also ADHD too. Like, I'm very blunt. I think it's being neurodivergent mixed with my upbringing and then just learned experience of, wow, this feels really good to feel free versus living that kind of like caged lifestyle that just doesn't it's not in alignment with me. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of things.
When did you get your first book deal?
So, technically, I haven't gotten a book deal. I'm
Oh, so you
self-published.
self-published? That's awesome.
Yes, so it's very rare, I know, to be, like, even, like, optioned for film as an indie author. I just have that personality where it's if I want something, I flew myself out to LA
Yeah.
3 times, and I'm like, no one's gonna tell me something's gonna happen before I leave." And so I was just very determined, and I saw the vision. So, yeah, I manifested it because I'm like, I know I don't and it never will like, whatever you really want, it's never gonna come the way that you want it to come, like, ever. So that's what I'm learning on the journey too. It's okay, yeah, I got like a movie deal, right? Like a movie's being made about my book, but it didn't come in the way that I thought I was going to get a traditional book deal. Then they were going to go and do sell my manuscript and voila. It wasn't like that. And actually, I think it's really cool that it's not like that because it feels more authentic too. I didn't have any gatekeepers say yes to me. I said yes to me. I said yes to me from the beginning to my book to just publishing it when I wanted to because I had an audience on TikTok saying, publish this like tomorrow. I'm like, I can't publish it tomorrow, but I could probably publish it in a couple months.
Yeah. No, so it's really stepping into your personal power. I just
Yeah.
interviewed Kathy Heller. She wrote the book Abundant Ever After, and she's got a podcast by the same name.
Hmm.
And early in her life, she had a music career, and it didn't go exactly the way that she wanted it to. But then she sidestepped and did it a different way, and was able to still get her music out there and have it be used in TV shows and all this other stuff. Like you, it was like it was cold calling. She just decided, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to come up with a way to do this. So I just started calling people, and then people started using my music, and I got paid for it. It's just
Yeah.
how cool is that?
It is cool, and I don't know, there's something like I said, there's something very exciting about that, like, they call it and even, like, movie making, there's A story and the B story, and the B story here would be the A story is obviously the movie or the book that you wrote. The B story is, like, the story behind the story. So, like, I'm always invested in the story behind the story of, like, okay, how did that filmmaker oh, wow, she was living in her car for 2 months, and then she finally got that, like, that role that really her big break. The B story is also very special to me, and so I'm like, I don't know, the classic trope of like, I wrote a wonderful book and then I sold it and then it went off and it did this. It's okay, that's so typical, but a story of a single mom who was figuring it out, wrote a bestseller,
In the
and
Midwest.
in the small town Midwest
Yeah.
trying to make it meet. I didn't have a job. Like, I didn't have a salaried career. I was a stay-at-home mom, and then I was, like, shoved into my own place to figure it out, and so yeah, like, my story is I'm a single mom. I self-published a book because the TikTok audience was like, "We need this today." I'm like, "Sure." So I, like, hustled. I published it a couple months later. It became a bestseller, and then as an independent author, then I am now make turning that into a movie in Hollywood. I think that's just so much cooler than the other way.
Yeah.
A lot more work, but I like the B story a lot better.
Yeah. It's that underdog story that everybody loves
Yeah.
so much, that Rocky story.
Mhm. Yeah,
So you were married previously.
I was.
What happened?
I love how you I love the way you what happened?
I know you've got the story, so it's just
Yeah.
I'm just gonna unlock that and let you go.
Yeah, a lot happened. We started dating when I was 17. So he came to my high school graduation and my high school graduation party. So we were together for about 15 years. We were married almost 10. And I think regardless, if you read the memoir, you know that there's deeper things that happened. But I think regardless, when you go through that much growth, like, one of 2 things happen, you either grow together or you grow apart. That's just I think it's from here on out, and my viewpoint on relationships has entirely changed since my divorce. I don't really know if I believe in, like I think it's super romantic, but, like, the one or someone that you marry forever. I just don't know if that's realistic. If we're being honest about unless and I think the only way that will work is if 2 people are growth minded and they're committed to their growth independently and together because inevitably one person will grow and the other person will stay here either emotionally, physically, energetically, spiritually, and you won't be a match. And that's when it's, oh, you've changed. You're a different person, of course, right? So I
Right.
think the only way that a relationship can be healthy and last long term is if 2 people are committed to that growth and they're like right here. Or if they just keep I don't think they always have to be neck and neck, but, like, they need to be pulling each other up or supportive. So, yeah, I think a lot of it was I obviously am very growth-minded. I had these very big dreams for myself, and he wasn't supportive of them and just would laugh at me and tease me or mock me about, like, my books or the work that I'm doing. He's like, "Your dreams are impossible. That's never gonna happen. I don't know who you think you are." Like, I had all of that coming at me, as an adversity, but I'm just like, "You know what? I've got this little voice in me that says I can, and I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna tune out the noise of a very unsupportive partner at the time and go for it on my own if I have to. I think if you have a big dream, unfortunately, you'll have to make choices like that, leaving people behind, and that's exactly what it was.
I always encourage people, and I'm trying to create content around this more and more, where we start using the language of a shared mission and vision. And so you're getting super intentional about the
Mhm,
person that you want to be with, that you're going to spend time with, that you're going to build something with.
mhm.
And if you're familiar with the angry therapist, John Kim, in his books, he says, the one is the one right in front of you. You're making a conscious decision, a conscious choice. And this is a daily choice that you make each and every day that you're going to grow and be in support of one another physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And when you have that intention, you start creating a 1, 3, 5, and 10-year plan for what it is that you're going to manifest, that you're going to co create, because you're always in a state of creation and co creation. So, why wouldn't you want to speak life into your partner? And if they have a dream, if they have a goal, and it's something that, they're truly passionate about, why wouldn't you want to support them and see where they can take it, to see where they can go with it?
Unfortunately, as someone who identifies as an empath, I was a magnet for a narcissist. And I don't like to talk about that because there is a kind of an icky dialogue around talking about any sort of being a victim of any sort of narcissistic abuse or emotional abuse with which I was. Like I don't want to be a victim in any story. Like again, as the writer, I don't really like the victim stories. I'd like to tune that out. But the truth is, yes, there are people who want to dim your light. There are people who see your capabilities and then instead of being excited for you, they're threatened by you or intimidated or just don't like you to be happy because they're not happy. And so that is a very real thing that a lot of empathetic women, or most women in general, deal with men. There's a lot of hatred towards women. And that's a whole I'm channeling that into my new work in progress right now. Um, because I think women have a right to be so angry with the way that the world is, especially the way the dynamics are between men and women. And I think just my experiences with men have been not good. So
I don't know. It sounds like you've had some pretty good experiences.
no, I have. I have short or yeah, you're referencing my memoir.
I am.
I have. I've had some pretty good short term things. And I'm still curious. I like I said, I met this really wonderful man when I was in California. And of course he had a girlfriend, right? Of course he lives in a different country. Or
Right.
of course. So practicality non-existent. But when I meet people like that who are like in alignment, in the vibration, I'm like, wow, there are some really great men out there. And I've experienced short-term little like doses, but I don't think I have called in. I'm getting closer, I'll say that. I can tell I'm getting closer to finding someone who's right here and is everything I'm looking for. To I think even like a long-term relationship, I'm not sure how I feel about marriage or what my thoughts are there, but I do think you go farther faster with someone else than by yourself. And I think I finally have reached that where I'm like, okay, like maybe it would be nice to have a partner right now. I think I'm ready for that. But for a while, like, the short term stuff was fun, and I have no shame. I had a great time, and I'm still having a good time until I get to where I'm going.
Yeah, I like that you choose to move away from the victim story because
Yeah.
even as an author, think about that for a second, chase it down. What does the victim story often look like? In the long term, it
Yeah,
usually
it just get
leads
you
to
anywhere.
a ton of negative experiences.
Right.
And with that, so we're sitting in victim consciousness. And for those of you who are listening, you can look up Dr. Kelly Brogan. I've done a podcast with her. She's got the Reclaimed Woman book that
Mhm.
just came out. And when we're sitting in that victim consciousness, it takes us down a path that we don't really want to go, but we get stuck in it. And it's really hard to pull ourselves out of that because we're constantly telling ourselves a story of all these other negative experiences. And it's not saying that these negative experiences don't exist, but you're also not going to lend any power to that because you're trying to move in a different direction and create something different for yourself. And
Mhm.
I always tell everybody that we create the conditions for our relationships to exist. So if we're constantly stuck in this particular mindset, then you're always going to receive and experience the same things over and over again. So you have to be
Right.
willing or find the power within yourself to begin to move in that other direction and let go of that victim consciousness, which is that's the trick, right? That's the really difficult thing to do. That's the work.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. It just it's so simple. It's just not cool to me. I don't that doesn't add to my swag. And at the most basic level, I could hear and tell people a sob story or make them feel so bad for me. But what does that really do? I prefer the story of the hero's journey. Like, all right, I was thrown some adversity. Let's win it. Let's save the day. Let's save my own day. That's just the story I prefer.
But then that also shows up in the way that you treat other people, and I
Right.
think it's why people are they feel so connected with you. So you meet random people, they wanna talk to you, they wanna have a conversation with you. You
Mm.
meet somebody out at a bar, they're just like, "I need to talk to her," and I feel like those experiences keep happening for you over and over again. But what people don't realize is that is what expands your network. That is what puts you in this position to receive the things that you're actually wanting to receive because your body language is open. You're open to
Mhm.
receiving.
I love that. Have you been like a fly on the wall? How do you know this is my life experience? Or is it just the memoir? Did I say that?
So
A vibe.
you read through it, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is there. But then I've been doing this for several years now.
Yeah.
Cop for 8 years. I spent a lot of time in people's houses. Very familiar with relationship dynamics, dysfunctional
Mm,
relationship dynamics, how all these things have come to be. And even as my role as a police officer, I started turning to all the books that are behind me. And it's
mm,
why I've interviewed most of the people that are back there because I was trying to figure out how can I help people? How can I help people in the real world navigate these difficult experiences that they seem to be repeating over and over again, but then blaming everything outside of them for the reason that this is happening. And
Right.
really, we have to get to that place where we start turning that flashlight inward and
Mhm.
shine it on ourselves and say, okay, what can I do different in my life to give myself a different experience? And
Yeah.
if you can just get there, man, like your whole life just opens up to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Well, you're
open up to you.
yeah. No, I love what you're saying, and I love how you painted, like, the visual of that opening because you're right, and it was weird. It was like you were, like, reading me intuitively. I go places and, yeah, people will just come up to me and they'll just join into my story or they'll get, like, really emotionally connected to me and they'll wipe tears. I don't know, I've never told anybody that. I have some secrets from people that I don't even want because they're just like, "I don't know who else to tell." Like, I feel and I'm like, "I don't want this secret." But I do it does feel really good for me to be a safe space for other people. But I'm curious, I wanna go back to you. You said and this is a good reflective moment too, because I feel this, but I feel like I'm channeling it differently these days, but I used to feel that where you're just like, "I just wanna help people." But do you this is devil's advocate, do you feel like doing all of that work for other people is it helping you? Or is it, like, the avoidance of doing your own, like, whatever? Or is it just what's the difference between that and, like, having a mission? Am I
Yeah.
making sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. When you do things for other people, you feel good. So it's altruistic in a way. But
Right.
at the same time, I'm getting this massive benefit from helping all these different people with all these different
Mhm.
experiences, problems, issues, concerns, fear, anger, frustration, irritation, sadness, loneliness,
Yeah, all
depression.
your work is awesome.
Like we dive into so many different things, and then I get these little messages here and there. It'll be in my Instagram DMs or it'll be on Facebook or somebody will leave a review on Facebook of the
Mhm.
21-day self-love challenge that I do and just the difference that it's made in their life. And like I said, this goes back to my time in crime scene where when you see people leave the planet permanently and you see the notes that get left behind, you want to figure out a way to help people begin to see their worth and to understand that you are loved. But
I
at the same time, we have to learn to love ourselves in that process. And I didn't know any other way to try and help people get to that place of self love
yeah.
than to create the content that's going to help push them in that direction.
Yeah, I understand, like, your story of the why, but do you feel that it's, like, your calling to do the work that you're doing? This is what I was put on here for. Or do you feel like it's a temporary mission?
I feel like it's a temporary mission. I've had what has felt like different callings throughout my life.
I think
You know,
that's normal.
I've been a chef, I've been a cop, I went back to school. School was never something that was meant for me.
Mhm,
I didn't get good grades. I struggled in school, and
mhm.
if they were to go back, they would say I had ADHD and
Yep.
probably a tiny bit of dyslexia. I ended up in speech class in the 2nd grade because of the way I said orange and down, except I said orange and down and window and yella because my parents are from Baltimore, and
Yeah,
it's just like that inner city talk in the Midwest.
sure.
They don't like that here very much. They're like,
No.
you sound weird. You need help."
Huh.
But then I struggled with reading throughout grade school, so there was just, like, all these little struggles that led up to, "Jason ain't going to college because he ain't
Mhm,
smart enough." But then as the years went on, I started to believe in myself a little bit more,
mm,
and what I was doing transitioned. I'm capable of more, so I did more.
mm.
I bet on myself and went back to school, and
Nice.
then became a police officer. I continued to bet on myself again, got a master's degree, was able to serve in crime scene and SWAT team.
That's
And
fun.
you just continue to expand yourself and grow and develop and create purpose, and this is that next stage of creating that purpose, and whatever happens next, I'm actually uncertain right
Yeah.
now.
Mhm,
My podcast is top 2% of all podcasts, so that's something that I've been able to do in 2.5 years, which that's like
it's
virtual high
incredible.
five, good job,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's continuing to grow, so it's okay, so there's something there. But in my content, I have all these videos on take a walk with me. Well, I have notebooks, paid pieces of paper that have been ripped out of notebooks that I write all these down. Is that a book? Probably. So now I'm in this place of should I start writing a book? I don't know. I've never done that before. That's something new and different. I could probably start doing something like that.
Do you feel
And
called to do it? Do you feel like you
I,
want to?
I do.
Then
Again,
yes, the answer is yes.
the
You have
it
to.
it comes down to structure. And so what am I actually creating? What is this building? What am I doing this for? And how do I Is it a story? Is it a fiction story? Is it something that's more educational based? I probably would do a lot better with something educational based, and then if it's educational, what purpose is it gonna serve at the end of the day? So, because it's gotta be something different than what's already out there.
The difference is it would be from you,
Yes, you're not wrong.
right?
But in terms of what's next, I have no idea.
I
I'm just
get that. I was just curious. I'm like, I feel like there's a lot of people who are called to help, right? Like nurses and doctors or like therapists. And it's just, it was literally just a question, not to put you on the spot. It was just an internal thought I had. I'm like, do these people in these like helper roles, do they feel that they're supposed to be there forever? Is it a temporary mission? Because I think I used to lead these somatic like healing events and these emotional thing, and I was really deeply called to that during this season of my life where I needed. And so
right.
I wanted to bring community along with me to heal, and it was, and it really worked. And so that was a chapter, and some people will still say, "Oh, I miss your events. Like I miss the emotional healing events." And yeah, like I loved it, but that was a season of my life and I felt like I needed to do that mission to heal myself, to help heal others, to finally be okay for this like next calling, right? Because I didn't always see myself making movies. I really didn't. So this is still uncertain for me. But it was just a curiosity that I had because I was in a similar place where I felt so deeply called to help. And then now it's my calling is more inward. And but also called outward in a different expression through like creativity.
Yeah, it
So
comes back to manifestation
yeah.
and being open to receive.
Mhm.
And then so whatever comes in next, I know that it's gonna be something that somebody's
Yeah.
gonna come to me, they're gonna present to me, they're gonna send me an email, and
Ooh.
there's gonna be a collaboration. I know there's going to be I feel it,
Well, I
and
can feel it when you say it. I've got chills. That's how yeah.
I know something's coming in. It's just it's not even in my peripheral right now,
Hasn't showed up yet.
but I know something's coming in. On the flip side of that, there's a part of me that's like, when I have enough money, I would love to have a ranch, right? Maybe in Idaho or Utah, but to be able to bring in veterans and first responders and to work with them in the areas where they struggle most. So PTSD
So that is your calling. Yeah.
to, to, to
To
some
serve and to
degree.
I love
Yeah.
that because
You
you're
know,
doing what you're supposed to do, and what you're supposed to do is what you want to do.
yes.
That's
But
cool.
people keep asking for it. When are you going to do an event? I want to take a walk with you. And so I'm not opposed to doing a 5K event along with our rucksacks and getting out there and doing these things together and get sponsored by Go Ruck and all of those things. But it's like that's like a 2025 late, maybe 2026 kind of thing. And it's on my board. I want to create it. I'm bringing it in, and
There you go.
we'll see when we get there.
Yeah. No, that's exciting. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for asking the question. I'll tell you what, I don't
Yeah.
typically answer questions, I'll be honest with you, and I don't go on other people's podcasts.
Yeah.
But people have been asking me more and more to go on their podcast, and I'm like, this is a season going into 2025 that the answer is gonna be yes to just pretty much everything because it's time.
Good. Oh, I love that. That gave me chills too. Yes to everything because it's time.
It's time.
I
Again,
feel
you
that.
spend all this time building and creating, and I've got all this, and I've got the what, 5 500,000 followers at this point across all platforms, and it's
It's a lot.
the base is there. What else are you gonna do with that? So now we gotta do more.
Yeah, there's a lot of momentum. It's cool.
Yeah, so getting back to you, age gap romances. I think a lot of
Mm.
people are gonna benefit from this because relationships are a struggle enough, but as we look to society, it's always, "Oh, that age gap, that's a little weird. You can't do that." And then all your friends are going, "That's a bad idea, Brittany. What are you doing?" What role did that play in your life?
Yeah, I had always had my husband for 15 years, and he was 4 or 5 years older than me. So I didn't really that's normal, right? When the man is older than the woman, that's like standard normal, okay? But I'm divorced, and obviously you read the book. I'm at Whole Foods and I see this really attractive guy, and something in me told me to go talk to him. I've never experienced that before. I'm like, I guess I have to because God told me to. So I did. And luckily, I ended up writing a book and that became a bestseller. So there was a reason why, regardless if it worked out or not. but I didn't know how old he was. I was just like, "He's cute." Sometimes you can't tell, right?
Right.
Age it can really just be a number, and that was a prime example. I thought he was my age, and then I get closer, I'm like, "Oh, you don't have a gray hair, a wrinkle, anything on your face, like, how old are you?" "Oh, I'm 23." And at the time I was 31, I'm 33 now. So 23 and 31 as a male and female was very taboo. Like people just weren't. I told my friends, like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go on a date? Because he asked me on a date. He's like, age is just a number, it's going at one day. I'm like, I don't know, girls, what do you think? And they're like, one day, big deal. Well, it ended up being like almost a 2 year on and off thing with him. And age being the biggest reason why we just didn't stay together. So I will say on the side of the coin with is age really just a number? I think it is. I think the connection I had with him was very emotionally safe, very just spiritual and wonderful and beautiful, honestly. Um, but I don't think it can work out long term unless the two people are it's all about timing. And he's 25 right now. There's no way he's ready to take on I have 2 kids. No way he's ready to take on, like, the father role. So I think it can be unconventional, but it could really work. Like, he didn't drink. He wasn't like your typical 25-year-old. He listens to jazz music, and he stays home and makes, like, peach jam and listens to, like, easygoing he's just super easygoing, much more mature for his age than the typical 25-year-old kid who's vaping and, like, out in the bar scene. That's just not him, and so I think it can work if the 2 people are ready for that sort of commitment. He obviously was not and is still not. But with that said, I also have really only dated younger men since, and I don't know if that's a subconscious thing because 'cause I'm, like, trying to recreate what we had, or that's just what's attracted to me or what comes up to me. I think a lot of men my age or older are married or so that hasn't really worked for me. But most of the men, almost all of them have been younger than me, and I think it's because I'm so high energy and I have a lot of, like and I'm not in a timeline, like, I think a lot of women my age are ready for, like, marriage and kids, and I'm not. So, I'm more in alignment energetically with someone in their late 20s or early 30s who, yeah, like, we could date and that might pop up in the future, but I'm not in a rush to get to the altar either. So, maybe it's an energy thing.
Maybe.
What do you
Could
think?
could also be a control thing.
I could Oh, let's hear this.
I'm just
It
saying
is
it
it
could
is
be
more balanced.
because you said fearful avoidant, and so
Yes,
that comes with a lot of push-pull. I love you, I
right,
hate you, get away from me, please don't leave me. I need you, but I really don't need you in this moment. So there's a lot of push and pull in that dynamic, and that can
yes,
get really frustrating. But at the same time, it's like it's what's safe, it's what's normal, it's what feels good because it's what we experienced early in life. And so again, we create these conditions to exist in all of these relationships in some way, shape, or form. And there are those moments where it's so good. It's amazing and you're elated and it's just I can't get enough of this. This is intoxicating. And then it just like shifts and you're like, "What is that?" And then there's this time period where you're apart, and then you come back again, and then we get this little push-pull thing going on. "I miss you,
yeah,
I need you, come back." And that'll go on for weeks,
ever
months at a time.
or
And
ever,
before you even recognize that, man, this pattern, like, this is a little rough. And it can
very,
and like you said, it can go on for years before you get to the place where you finally say, "You know what? Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore because
mhm,
it's impacting me so negatively. I gotta go."
right,
And then
yeah.
you finally say, "Peace out."
That was it. That was my relationship with a very young guy, right? He's 8 years younger than me. He was a hardcore avoidant. That or he just didn't like me, but I think he was very avoidant just based on our communicating, knowing him. But I'm a fearful avoidant, so that was a very unique dynamic, and I also, as an avoidant, kind of liked it because guys who are too anxious really stress me out. I don't like it. It feels repulsive, and it makes me like, gives me, like, a physically ill feeling. And so I either attract like a very anxious partner or one that's like hardcore avoidant where it's like more exciting to me because, oh, you give me my space, but not too much. Cause wait a minute, right? Cause then I get a little anxious when it's too much space. That whole dynamic is, and I love that you're doing work on that because it is real. But someone literally asked me this question ironically yesterday. And she's, you know, because I have an open dialogue about it in my book, and just I'll say, you know, I definitely am more avoidant than anything, even with my own family, even with my own friends outside of romantic. It's just these things that I know to be true about myself and how I handle emotions, and I'm working through it. But she was asking me, "What do you think about this scenario?" And she told me about it, and I'm like, honestly, as someone who leans mostly avoidant, I'm more avoidant when I don't like the person. Even at a subconscious level, I'm more avoidant if I can't tell you why. This guy could be great on paper, but I don't wanna respond to his text. He's wonderful to me, but don't I will not respond for hours and hours and hours and hours. Or, like, I will just be very quick to cut off and just avoid because I don't. So if I don't have a good synergy with that person, even subconsciously, I will subconsciously avoid even more. So that's why I'm saying, like, the young guy, like, I think we had a great connection, but it can make avoidance worse if you are an avoidant, if you can subconsciously feel that there's something not right, even if you can't put your finger on it. Even if everything is so perfect at face value, I think if the connection isn't right, is gonna heighten one way or the other. What do you think?
Oh, I totally get it. But at that point, that's when you should, if you recognize that in yourself, that it's just, I'm so repulsed by this situation or this person. Sometimes that can be a relationship to lean into and
And I
to
have done that work.
try and figure it out. Okay, so
Yes.
this is happening inside of me, but why? The
Mhm.
problem is we don't tell the other person that's what we're doing, and
Yeah.
so they're trying to give you all this love and kindness and all this other stuff, and it's repulsing you even more, but you're trying to do some work, but they don't know you're
Right.
trying to do some work, and so they're just bending over backwards, trying even harder to get this thing to move along because
Mhm.
it's at a standstill, and that doesn't feel good either. And it's
Right.
like if we would just be honest with the other person, say, "Hey, look, I'm actually fearful avoidant. And when I receive all these text messages, this is what ends up happening to me. This is what I feel. This is what I'm going through. So if we can start to limit that type of conversation, doesn't mean I don't want to see you. I look forward to our dates, but if we can
Right.
leave it more towards either FaceTime once a week or we end up
Mhm.
just waiting for that next date, that would be amazing. And just know
Right.
that I'm not like I don't have 20 people in my DMs. I'm not talking to all these other dudes at the same time. You're like,
Right.
I'm focused with you. I'm working with you. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That's cool,
Yeah.
right? But when we put them at arm's length and then we don't tell them what's going on,
You're
that's
exactly right.
again, we create the conditions for the toxicity to exist
Mhm.
within that relationship.
Oh, you're so right. And I am very self-aware, and so I am one of the rare people who knows they're a fearful avoidant, is actively leaning in to those uncomfortable situations. And yeah, it was, you know, I was seeing a guy recently. I don't think it's gonna work, but that's another story. But very anxious type.
So have you told him yet? Because I'm probably going to put this out today.
Uh, he knows, he knows, he knows,
Should
you
I
know.
edit that part out?
No, you shouldn't. He knows. It's just not. But with that said, I'll just be honest. I told him right away, I'm a person who needs space. I'm a writer by, you know, by trade. This is what I do. I retreat. I need my alone time. And I told him that when he could honor that and I set that boundary that I needed my space. And I was like, that was one of the greatest acts of love you gave me was when I asked for space and you left me alone. And that probably sounds so harsh to maybe an anxious person or someone who doesn't understand, but that was one of the greatest acts of love because it made me feel like you understand that this means a lot to me to feel safe and good, and you're giving me that. That was to be gifted in a gifted space is one of my greatest gifts that my friends could give me. My best friends will go traveling for 4 or 5 days, and they know to work in time. It makes me emotional because we don't necessarily wanna be like this, but if I don't get my time alone, I'm not me, and so they'll literally put in the itinerary, give Brittany, like, 2 or 3 hours alone, and that's a gift. And so
Yeah.
my ideal partner, I've talked about this with in therapy, is someone who can gift me that because that is what I seek and want. So that was one of the nice things he did for me when I asked for it and set boundaries, because I did tell him this is too much and I need to have some time to me because I need that independence or I feel physically ill. So yeah, I think it is important to communicate up front, but It is very nuanced because a lot of that repulsion that you feel is just a response of, "Oh, someone's trying to love me." That doesn't feel good, right? So
Right?
I'm trying to do the work, now. Is this love? Is this avoidance? So there's so much information out there too, but there's also intuition. So it's
Right.
like there's a lot at play. Is this intuition or is this me being an avoidant at the time?
At the same
So
time, it sounds like you need somebody who's just more keyed into their own purpose,
yeah.
and that's
hmm
probably gonna be a super successful relationship for you.
Yes, it has to be someone who's got their own mission because if you have all of this time to chat me up all day, it's taking away from my mission, so it's distracting. Yeah, it's not really what I'm looking for. I think any person who has a mission is looking for someone else too who's got a mission.
Yeah, it goes back to that co-creating that we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
So you also have a podcast
I
called
do.
The Defiant Human.
That's right.
What does that mean?
I'm taking a bit of a hiatus because I had all this book stuff hit all at once and the movie stuff, which is very exciting. And also I had another area of business that I was like investing in, which today I sold. So as of tomorrow, I will be a full-time writer 100% and not having my attention divided. So my plan for 2025 is to go and build up my Defiant Human podcast because I do like it. I love it. It's fun. Yeah, defiant human came to me when I just moved into my house and I was shape shifting into like this newer woman who was stepping into her power. And I looked at my key as I was entering the house and it's like a brand and the brand is defiant. And this is really embarrassing as around like I don't necessarily know what that word means, defiant. I didn't really know. Again, very embarrassed to admit it, but I looked it up and I was like, "Oh shit, that's me. I'm defiant. I'm rebellious. I want to take a stand for something and do it with my full chest, one way or the other, regardless of what anybody says about me." So I'm like, okay, so I just rebranded. I'm like, this is me. I'm a defiant human. All the people I look up to and admire are people who do things defiantly, whether it's cure an illness, naturopathically or learn to walk again with meditation like Dr. Joe Dispenza, like they don't take no for an answer. They're very defiant in whatever they're doing. It's no one can tell them shit. This is the way. Right? And so that's what I liked about it. And so yeah, it is my goal to get back there and like interview people. I love to hear as a storyteller, I like to hear stories. I like to tell them, but I like to hear them. So I like being on both sides of the mic. I like to talk, but I also like to absorb because people fascinate me. Their stories are fascinating. I like to hear how people think and what makes them tick and how they got to where they are. And so yeah, that's the story with that.
Yeah, no, I love the premise of the podcast. It's exercising that FU muscle. The
Yeah.
one that I describe is like sitting right here. It's really connected to your diaphragm. Maybe it is the
Yeah.
diaphragm, right? But it's
Maybe.
connecting with your voice and
It's just a little like
yeah.
the
But
bird
it's
right
just
there.
like right there, this little nudge that's always, you know what? Actually, no. I am gonna do this and you can't stop me from doing this.
I love
And
that.
I'm not going to align with your way, with your purpose, with your view of the world. Like I have my own view of the world and it's serving me. And if you don't like it, guess what? That's okay.
Yeah.
Go live your life because I'm gonna live mine and it's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, no, I love that, the FU muscle. Oof,
Oh.
that's it. That's it, yeah, it's just not I don't care, and the people that I am inspired by, they don't care, they'll shave their head. Like Elizabeth Gilbert, she's been divorced so many times, she shaved her head, and she dates women, then she dates men, and it's who cares? She's Elizabeth Gilbert, right? And you are you, so, like, why can't you do whatever you want? And I just people like that, I love. It's just good. You go, Elizabeth Gilbert. You go, Jason. You do your thing. You do your thing. It's cool.
And on that note of doing your thing, you also put a book out in collaboration with someone else called Hippie Eats.
Oh, yeah. I
What
did.
what was that all about? How'd that come? Because it's just you're so all over the place. You'll do a little bit
They're
of
all over.
you do a memoir, you do fiction, you do a cookbook, you just do it all.
I do whatever I feel like doing. That's and it's often unadvised to follow your heart in that way
Yeah.
because it was confusing to not put myself in a box. But I wrote a cookbook because I wanted to, two cookbooks because I wanted to. Really, it happened because at the time I was married to my ex-husband, right? And his sister, my ex-sister-in-law would always ask me for recipes, and it was getting annoying, honestly, because I'm like, how many times do I have to give Carly that chili recipe before? before she stops asking me for that chili recipe.
So wait, are you a good cook?
Yeah, it became a bestseller. I'm a pretty
I
good I
love
don't like to flex that because then everybody views me as wifey material from the jump. I
what's
don't
wrong
wanna
with
play
that?
my card because I think I have a fear of commitment. I keep it in my
Yeah.
back pocket because I'm like, this is my ace. I don't wanna I'm not playing that right now. But yeah, I'm a pretty good cook, and so they're health conscious meals. It started because I was going to make a little book for my sister-in-law for her wedding because I was tired of her asking me for them. And then I collaborated with an influencer who had a ton of followers, and we ended up selling like a ton of these cookbooks. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. All right, I'm doing another one. And I did it again. But also, a story a lot of people don't know is I was diagnosed with a lifelong incurable illness. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. My mom has it. I was very sick and I use like food as medicine. So my earlier podcast, it was actually called All Good Juju before I rebranded, and I just talked about like holistic health and wellness and spirituality and all of that. And then I just flipped everything on its head and was like, okay, let's be a bad bitch a little bit, but we can still talk about that. But but yeah, I think it is a pretty bad bitch thing to do also to heal an incurable illness. I don't talk about that, but I did that without medication,
It's
naturally
amazing.
with meditation, not medication, with meditation, food, EFT tapping, like rewiring the subconscious. Like I really was like, I said F you to my doctors who were like, you're gonna need this $1,000 medication every day, or yeah, every day for the rest of your life. No, I don't want that. $1,000 a month for the rest of my life? No. So I
No,
told the doctor, I'm like, you'll never see me again. And he never saw me again.
that's
So
amazing. So how are you now? You're good?
I'm good. I've been in remission going on 4 years
That's amazing.
by myself with the grace of God
Yeah.
and everything else.
Yeah. The other thing people don't know about you is you've also done bikini competitions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
What was that like, that part of
I
your life?
I'm a
Would you
mixed bag
would you do
of
it again?
you know. I don't think I would do that type of bikini competition. I would give me like 3 months to really wheel it in and shape up. I would walk like a Victoria's Secret runway. Like I
No.
would yeah, I would do something sexy like that if I like focused on I would do something like that, but I wouldn't do the bikini competition in the form of bodybuilding because it's just really hard on your body. But I would have a goal and yeah, I would grace the stage again for sure. It's fun.
What's one lesson you took away from doing those competitions?
Discipline. You anything really that was the pinnacle for me to realize that you can truly do anything you put your mind to. And if you think about it long enough, hard enough, and you're obsessed with it enough, you will be that thing that you want to become. And it was a physical manifestation, literally, of I was obsessed with it. I had 3 or 4 gym memberships. I lived, ate, and breathed and slept fitness. And that's what I became. I became exceptionally fit and I won top 5 in my first bodybuilding competition and I like achieved it. And so I put in the work and I remained extremely disciplined towards the goal. And it was like, okay, I can do that. And like less than 1% of the population has abs and I could
Right.
hit that goal, which is pretty cool. And not only that, like I took it to the next level of becoming exceptionally fit that it just showed me what I was capable of. So I think it was really a good life lesson for me. I have a lot of those, right?
Mm.
But I would never want to, it's so much to put your body through that, especially now that I'm like older. And no, I did that in my early 20s, but
And
yeah.
what role does fitness play in your life now?
Oh, it's still very much a part of my life. Growing up, I was an athlete and to toot my own horn, I think I was a good one, but I think it's because was always a visualizer. Like I always saw myself like winning that medal. I always saw myself like on the track, right? Or like saw myself, but I was also very dedicated. So I would stay late for practice or I would do basketball camps or I would, race in the off seasons, like whatever it was, I wanted to be better. I always had that drive to be the best. If I'm doing it, I'm doing it the best. So even now, like I think once an athlete, always an athlete. That's how I feel. It's like a mindset though. It's not like I'm competing against anybody in the gym or like I'm trying to lift any harder or faster. It's really just I will forever be an athlete. That's just in my DNA of I wanna be strong, I wanna be fast, I wanna be my best, and I think this is crazy, but I think your body is one of the best. It's so controversial. If you can help it, obviously, if you have any sort of health condition or whatever, you can't like it's not the best gauge. But sometimes if you are healthy enough, fitness is a really wonderful business card because it shows you a lot about a person. It shows you their work ethic, their dedication, their discipline. So yeah, I think discipline is one of my favorite qualities about myself, but also like in other people.
I love that. And it's
Yeah.
so true. And for people always getting their feelings about this type of stuff, but I communicate about it all the time. You have to have practices in all these different areas, physically,
Yeah,
mentally, emotionally, and spiritually,
for
and
sure.
you have to have it daily. And if you're not doing those things, you're gonna feel like you're suffering all the time because you're not giving your body what it needs physically,
Right.
mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
So we talked about it earlier with whatever you consume, whatever you bring in all of those spaces. So, content that you're taking in, books that you're reading, movies that you're watching, like all of this stuff has an impact on not only your view of self, but your view of the world as well. And so, you can see the world as being absolutely amazing and there's all this opportunity and you're manifesting and bringing all this stuff in, or you can see it as, man, this world is really sad. This is so frustrating. Everything is so difficult. Everything always happens to me. You get to choose that. And I know right now for people that are listening, it doesn't always feel like you have that choice, but we gave you some tools here. In the very
Yeah.
beginning, we talked about journaling. So take some time, grab a notebook, sit
Mhm.
down with that notebook and a pen and just start writing these things out. And when you do that, you begin to figure things out about yourself, how your mind works, the things that you want, the things that you desire. And then you start getting answers. You start answering your own questions. This is how you're going to do that. And this is how you get here. This is the next step that you have to take. But it really comes from this place of you're sitting down, you're providing yourself with some emotional regulation, you're self-soothing, and you're using journaling as the method and the means to do that. And then
Mhm.
you get answers at the end of it. And it's how cool is that? And maybe it took you 15 minutes to work through whatever it is that you're going through right now in this moment.
I gotta say, you did a lot of homework on me. I'm impressed. You really knew a lot about me, and hey, that's pretty cool. A lot of people don't. I show up to an interview and they have no clue, like anything about me. So I feel very seen by you, and I appreciate
Good.
that.
The last thing we got, you had a course on your
Oh yeah,
website.
have that too.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, it's so funny because as you just keep going down the rabbit hole of me, there's all these things. Someone asked me about the course
We're almost
yesterday.
done.
Like, "I didn't know you had a course." Yeah, so I created it's free now just because it's, like, my gift to the world at this point. I just feel like it's my way of showing abundance, like, I have enough, I am enough, let me help you. So, if it will still be up there when people listen to this, I don't know if it'll be evergreen forever, but it is called Paid to Exist, and basically as when I was a stay-at-home mom, I was able to monetize, like, my passion. So, like, writing books and bringing royalties and learning how to get a brand deal for my podcast or learning how to do affiliate links or whatever. There's so many cool ways to monetize whatever you're doing. I was inspired by that and, like, my experience being, like, a creator that I could work from anywhere, do whatever, and do what I love most importantly, and then make money for it. So then I created a course to help people do that.
That's awesome. So if you
Yeah.
guys haven't checked that out yet, make sure you go to
Yeah.
Brittany's website. It'll be in the show notes. The film that you're working on right now, what book is it being adapted from?
So the one that is happening first is the On His Way Back to Me, which is the romance novel. They are talking about picking up they did pick up the memoir as well. So that
They
yeah,
should. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah, so that one we're thinking brainstorming right now as a team, is that more of a TV series? What does that look like? And
I was gonna
then
say that's like something you shop to Netflix. It's literally like a 5-part series that you could just
yeah.
knock out in that way. People would binge it in a heartbeat for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So we're brainstorming that, but we're starting right now with the romance one, and then the TV series would be super cool for Reaching for Driftwood. And then the next one is my Suburban Women series that it's going to be a novel, but series as well after that, which is like Big Little Lies, like a thriller kind of drama, which is exciting.
And when does that come out?
Not for a while.
Okay. That's
It'll be
awesome.
a bit. Yeah.
Brittany, I can't thank you enough for sharing time and space with me today. Tell people how they can reach you and work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Brittany Bacinski. And you can find me at BrittanyBacinski.com. So it's BrittanyBacinski. I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome.
Yeah, and on Amazon. My books are on Amazon if you want to check those out too.
Yeah, make sure you get her books. Go listen to
Yeah.
the podcast and check out her website, and all of that will be in the show notes, guys. Brittany, thank you so much for being here
Yes,
today.
thank you so much.